Hey guys, welcome back. I'm Nick, your host of On the Scene with Martini. Make sure to like, comment, subscribe, and don't forget, you are the scene. Hey guys, what's up? It's Nick, on the Scene with Martini. Today I'm here with Jeff from Thursday United Nations and No Devotion. How you doing, Jeff?
I'm good, man. It's good to be here.
Thank you so much for joining. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, my pleasure.
Uh, yeah, just want to kind of start off just like however my typical routine is just how you got into music. What was like your gateway? I know you're a New Jersey boy at heart,
Yeah,
now a New Yorker.
right. Still, yeah, New Jersey's still where my heart is. I mean, Thursday's still New Jersey, so it's like for me, I commute when we start rehearsing and recording and all that stuff. Um, I have been commuting for about 20 years, but it's like the band is still headquartered in New Jersey, so it's like that's still kind of my home. You know what I mean? Like, uh, I've been in relationships that have caused me to be in the city for a long time, but I'm a Jersey boy.
Fair enough.
And let's see, what got me into music? I know my parents were really into music when I was a kid. So, like, my first concerts, I was like really little, like 3 and 4. I remember falling asleep at a Dire Straits concert in Madison Square Garden and waking up because like Eric Clapton came out to play a guitar solo. And I remember telling my parents tell me this story that I woke up and was like, I hate that guy, like pointed to Eric Clapton. Which I kind of still hate Eric Clapton, so
Fair
like my
enough.
my taste started early. But then Crosby, Stills, and Nash, I remember seeing them at like the United Nations, and I don't know, my parents were into some weird stuff, so I saw like James Taylor in like I think it was James Taylor in like a loft. Maybe it wasn't James Taylor. It was Cat Stevens, maybe. Anyway,
Your parents
actually, I
have
don't remember.
taste.
It was one of them. Yeah, my parents had
Yeah.
good taste. They saw like Led Zeppelin before they were Led Zeppelin, when they were called the New Yardbirds and stuff. Like they had been like music fans for a long time. And so they always brought me along, and there was stuff that I liked more than others. I remember seeing Tom Petty when I was like 8, and I loved it. And the Replacements opened, and I loved the Replacements. My parents were like, they were really loud and really noisy. You know what I mean? But I was like, that was awesome. Um, and then I think it really like a lot really changed for me when I heard the Smiths, when I heard The Cure. Um, we went to see I went to see with my mom U2, and the Pixies opened up. So I was still pretty young. I think I was like 10-ish, and I got really into stuff like that, like kind of pre-alternative type stuff. And then a really big one for me was hearing Nine Inch Nails for the first time when they put out their first record. They had a song on it called Down in It that I heard like across a courtyard. And I remember just walking like in search of like where's this music coming from, and I got to it and there was like a boom box. This is like very old school, but there was like a boom box with a cassette in it, and there were just like a couple goth girls like dancing in the courtyard, and I was like, what is this? And they were like, it's Nine Inch Nails, like, what I mean? They were like, what are you talking about? It's Nine Inch Nails. And I remember going to get that tape and being like super into it. And when I was a kid, also like being a New Jersey boy, I loved hip hop. I used to buy his singles, which was like the one song that you'd hear on the radio you could buy on a cassette single.
hmm
And it would usually be on both sides of the cassette. So I just keep flipping over, you listen to the song. I remember buying like Tribe Called Quest Scenario when I was a kid, stuff like that. So like, it's like, makes sense that when I heard Nine Inch Nails, I was like, oh, like this is amazing. It's like the drum machines from hip hop, but it's like something else. So, yeah, I mean that's what got me all into it, and then I got kind of obsessed with going to shows. My parents were super cool. They let me go to every show when I was a kid. I remember the day before the first day of sixth grade. I think it was sixth grade. It might have been seventh grade. I went to see Jesus and Mary Chain with Curve and Spiritualized opening. Um, and then like that Friday, I went to see Faith No More on Angel Dust with Helmet opening. And it was just kind of from there, it's just like you'd go every, all the time. My parents would take me to all these shows, and then they started letting me go with my friends. The bus to New York was like $3. So we would just go to every show, and then There was a garage near me called the Westwood Garage. So that was like part of how I started getting into like more DIY shows. Um, yeah.
So like when you're like at these shows, when was like kind of the moment that sparked for you that you wanted to do vocals? And then more specifically, like you obviously post-hardcore has a very unique style with like kind of like the screaming to non-screaming, like the changes. Was that kind of right away, or did that take a little bit to get there?
Well, I loved hardcore. You know, when I was young, I went to tried to get in a show at CBGB's, but they used to have an age limit that was like 16 or older. So they wouldn't let me into CBGB's, and they said, but go around the corner, there's a new club called Coney Island High. They do hardcore shows. So I walked over, and the first show I saw there, like first of all, when I was walking in, like you open one door, there's a long hallway, there's a second door where the show is. I open the door and the other door flies open and Freddie Madball is like running out with somebody in his arms and he goes, "Get out of the way, he got stabbed."
Oh my
That was my
God.
first time at Coney Island High and I was like, what am I doing here? And then I walked in, it was like Crown of Thorns, 25 to Life, Madball, Agnostic Front. It was like VOD. You know, there were like 10 bands
Yeah,
back then. You would have so many bands on every show.
all
And I
iconic
was
bands too.
yeah, I was like, this is sick. You know what I mean? Especially like VOD came on, I was like, this is really sick. But I had already seen like Fugazi and some other like Bad Brains and stuff like that, some other big hardcore bands. So I already liked hardcore. You know, that didn't make me want to be in a hardcore band. I liked it, but then when I moved to New Brunswick, me and a bunch of like hardcore kids that like loved hardcore took a bunch of classes together because we met at orientation, and then we were roommates. And after kind of like our first year, we got off campus housing with a basement so we could do shows, and that's how I really got into like the scene. Was I started doing shows, and I started like doing flyers and like giving bands places to crash whenever they needed it. You know, that was kind of what I was into. I wasn't trying to be in a band. I just really liked it. I really liked being a part of the community. That's like what really like attracted me to hardcore in the end. It was like the community aspect, like the social aspect of like DIY. And so I like really liked experimental bands. You know what I mean? Like
Hmm.
all the stuff I started getting into then was like there were a lot of great West Coast bands like Gravity Records bands like Heroin, Antioch Arrow, Angel Hair. The Locusts were coming through a lot, and we were all seeing the Locust a lot, Swing Kids. And so like the first East Coast bands that started to be in that style that I saw really like did something to me. You know, it was like Orchid, Seisha, You and I was our local bands, and they were like my favorite of the bunch. They were so good live. So that like really like it set me on a path. You know, I also really liked the DC and Maryland stuff, like really into 400 Years, Sleepy Time Trio, like that kind of stuff. And yeah, I didn't really think that I would end up playing, but I did make a bunch of friends who like I was kind of like, well, maybe we should do something so we could play one of these shows, just like still, like I said, like a social thing, not like about what it would sound like.
Yeah.
And you know, so we had loosely for a long time like this, like, yeah, we should do something. And then we were all at an Ink and Dagger show, and they just blew us away so much that like Tom and I remember us being like, we got to do something, you know? So like we went and we like just with acoustic guitars wrote our first song was called This Side of Brightness. We didn't really have a band yet or anything, but we had this song and we are like, that's cool. And then we made a bunch of friends who said they'd do it and they'd want to do something with us. But it wasn't until like Refused were supposed to play the Melody Bar, which was right down the street from us. It was supposed to be like Refused, Frodis and Storm Shadow, and Storm Shadow were like a local band that used to play all our shows that we had there. Because like the way it used to be was like the local bands got everybody to come,
Yeah.
and the touring bands nobody cared about. You know what I mean? You'd have a show that'd be like, you know, Leatherface, Hot Water Music, Airtype 11, but you'd need like the local band to get the people there. You know what I mean? It's like a
Yeah. Yeah.
weird to think about now, but that's like how the people came was like through the friends. You know what I mean? We'd be like, you got to come see your friend's band, and we'll put them on last or whatever. Um, so we were like, we should do one of those bands. We'll go see Storm Shadow, you know, Refused, Frodis. We get there and Refused are all there, but they won't play because they've broken up, but they can't, they have to wait until their flight home. Like they can't go home early. So they're there, but they're not playing. we're like, all right, well, we'll stay and see Frodis. And then Frodis got into a van accident and they weren't playing. So Storm Shadow ended up playing a free show. And we were like, that's cool. We see Storm Shadow literally like twice a week.
Yeah.
Let's go have practice. And that was like the first Thursday practice was because Refuse broke up. Like, so that's just kind of how it happens.
So like was Thursday then a lot of times you hear like people saying, "Oh, I was in 15, 20 bands and then now I'm in the band that's touring and putting out albums." Was Thursday like your real first band then and it just kind of worked out from there?
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah. I mean, like when I was in high school, I would like be in like little things to do things,
Yeah,
but it
like
wasn't
friend group
like,
stuff.
yeah, it wasn't like we were good. You know what I mean? I worked in a studio. I worked in a studio for like mo most of high school. And like a lot of my jobs in the beginning were like answering phones, making coffee. They had four golden retrievers, so I was like the golden retriever whisperer. And like most of the time, I was like literally my job was taking care of the dogs, which was great because when Thursday went to record, we got, the studio hooked us up like
Yeah.
huge. But nothing real. And like the studio, they would all like make fun of like all my bands before that. They started the name like Tone Jeff, stuff like that. They're like, you can't sing and your bands all suck, and I was like, yeah, I don't disagree, but it gives me something to do. And then I remember when we brought Thursday into the studio, the guy that ran the place, he couldn't believe it. He was like, dude, your band is kind of actually amazing. Like, I don't know what you did. And they did like a lot of hardcore records in there. So like Roger from Agnostic Front heard us and was like, holy shit, like they're gonna be huge. The girls are gonna like them. Like
Yeah.
I remember him saying that girls are gonna like this
He's like, I'm
band.
gonna be on that bill.
Yeah, so he like gave us our first New York show. Like Roger from Agnostic Front gave Thursday their first New York show. You know what I mean? It's like a weird
Yeah.
thing like that. We were playing with all these like chaotic bands in our basement in New Jersey, but like New York hardcore bands started like giving us shows because they liked us. So we would play like Wetlands and stuff like that. You know what I mean? It was like a real weird, like we had a whole bunch of different like tracks going on at the same time. Whereas like we were part of this like scramsy, screamo-y scene in New Jersey where I did all these shows. But then like the New York hardcore guys were like, yeah, this is cool. It's like hardcore for girls. So
For Thursday, then, like, Mike, I guess two questions then I have is one, how did Thursday kind of come about name wise? And then the dove, when was that, or this the bird in general, when did that kind of come along? And did that symbolize anything, or was it just kind of a logo that worked out for you guys?
yeah, well Thursday, we were thinking about names and like I had made such a list of names and they were all so like heavy-handed. You know what I mean? I just started to kind of hate them all because I was like, these all sound like, you know, just like of the moment, you know what I mean? They felt just too like now, and Tucker, I remember he was like, I'm thirsty. And I was like, Thursday? And he was like, no, what are you talking about? And I started thinking about it. And I was thinking about like the Smiths,
Hmm.
and how it was like such an anonymous name that you couldn't like you didn't hear like the name the Smiths and go like, oh, I know what they sound like. You'd be like, I wonder what the Smiths are like. You know what I mean? And that was my dream for Thursday is like nobody will hear the name and think like, oh, it's this kind of band. Of course, later after like Thursday hit and bands started taking like day of the week names, like Taking Back Sunday and stuff like that, it was like the moment you heard the name Thursday, you knew like you would think, oh, it's an emo band. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And but funny enough, that's like the whole reason why I liked the name was that it was just so it didn't bring any baggage with it. It was such a common word, that it was impossible to ascribe too much to it. And then the dove came maybe about a year later after we had been playing. I had this idea of just like the name Thursday was so anonymous that it could be just filled with the meaning of the band. I thought this dove symbol is so overused and so stacked with meaning that it's like a great metaphor for the way culture is in America, where everything has like 10 or 20 different layers of meaning and it becomes kind of blank in its own way because you put enough meaning on anything and it's just sort of like it's just doesn't really mean anything. And so I like the idea that the dove would be this like postmodern um, symbol that we could use for our own purposes. I mean, I was really like deeply into theory at the time. Like my thesis and stuff was on all kinds of like, poetics of the body and stuff like that. I was pretty deep into kind of like postmodernism theoretical stuff. So,
When you guys first started too, one thing that I really liked about Thursday when I was like I heard about you guys a few years ago when I first got into the scene. One of the big things for me was when you guys like repressed Full Collapse. I'm a big record collector. And when I
mhm,
was looking back at your discography, I thought it was cool how you guys put out so much music in such a short amount of time. Like an album every year, basically from like
mhm,
99 to 2003. Then I mean 2002 you have your EP. But was it hard? Was it kind of like once you're on a roll, you just kept going with it? Because a lot of bands in the post-hardcore scene don't have a ton of albums. They kind of just have like, their three and then like their fourth album that really no one cares about. And they play like one song off of it that like some people know the words to.
mhm.
Did you guys kind of have a roll and just kept going with it?
We were just like a lot of the time, it's weird to think back on now, but like the kind of space that Thursday was in at the time was nobody was sort of doing what we were doing before we were doing it. So we were kind of like inventing new rules as we went along. And, um, Full Collapse was out for like almost a year before anybody cared at all. And then all of a sudden it was overnight. You know what I mean? It's just like, it was like a
Mm,
weird thing. It was out for like 8 months or something. And I think it sold 800 copies and then like suddenly it was selling 10,000 a week because we had just sort of like caught on in the minds of people. And then we were like on MTV all the time and it was just like really crazy. We were selling out, 5,000 seaters and it was just sort of this strange thing where like a lot of bands suddenly wanted to sound like Thursday and I even like a year later, I'd hear bands on main stage at Warped Tour playing songs that I thought were Thursday covers. And then when I get close enough, I'd be like, oh, that's like a different song. It's just rips us off so badly that I literally thought it was Cross Out the Eyes. You know what I
yeah,
mean? Like
yeah,
I really actually thought it was my song. And then I got close and was like, oh, that's different. Um, so it was like for a while, it was really like we were just kind of out in our own area. You know what I mean? In some ways, like, we were kind of like Turnstile is for the kids today, but like we
hmm
never got as big as they did, but it was the same sort of feeling of like finally a band from our scene is like blowing up, you know what I mean? And then everybody kind of came in our wake, and then like a lot of bands, immediately got bigger than us, bands like Taking Back Sunday and stuff like that. We were very anti-hit and very like anti-mainstream stuff, so it makes sense that we didn't catch on in a big way. Past a certain ceiling, which was kind of like the DIY ceiling. Um, so it's like really hard to like sort of describe it, but we were trying to figure out what that meant constantly. And for us, that meant we would just keep making records and just keep challenging ourselves and trying to change and do something new and push like, we weren't just trying to push the band forward. We had this idea that we were like sort of pushing the whole scene forward and like we had this really strong feeling of like keeping what had started in the basement, like this challenging, interesting, like sort of art project. And so it was like, we just lived together. We were always on tour. We were always writing, we were just going, 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 going.
yeah,
And that's why kind of when it stops, it just stops. And it's like, after No Devolution, it's like broke up. Even when we got back together, it was like, no, we're not starting all that again. You know what I mean? We're not going to live together. We're not going to be, because we used to play like 5 hours a day, 5 days a week, like basically for the whole time we were a band. We were just playing all day long, every day, just play, 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 play. And like, War All the Time was like a year of that before we even had like half the record done. So it's like, just nobody has that kind of time anymore.
yeah,
But it's why we had such a great run of records because like we never kind of like tried to skate on anything. We also never really like broke through past a certain point. So it was like we just stayed in our zone. Does that make sense? Like we
yeah,
just
yeah,
kind of stayed on the
absolutely.
grind and like kept our head down and like after City by the Light divided, I was kind of like disillusioned with like the major label and stuff. So I was like, looking for something more interesting, and that was like when we found Envy and did like the split with Envy on Temporary Residence. You know what I mean? I just wanted to keep
Hmm.
like it was always really important to me that we just keep doing interesting, strange, different things, finding cool bands, pushing the sound as far as we could take it. We started working with Dave Fridman to make it more of like an experimental sound. Um, and then like, now you get like a song every 6 months from us if you're lucky. It's because like I just really want to keep the quality super high. You know what I mean? I'd rather have like it's like nobody needs another record from us unless it's like life changing. So like why would we like kind of like dump out like a terrible filler record like so many people do at a certain point in their career? I just
Yeah.
that's sort of like my strong feeling that I've had forever is just like if it's so good that the world needs to hear it, we'll put it out. And so that right now means like we get a song at a time.
Gotcha. That's a very fair, a very good answer for my question. Uh, then you were saying too about how like you guys were kind of like the genre was fresh at that point of time,
Mhm.
post-hardcore in my eyes, like the late 90s, early 2000s. How did you approach your sound? Like, how did you know that you wanted to do a combination of screaming and melodic and a lot of harmonies, yet very crowd engaging energy? You know what I mean?
I thought about a lot of what was going on in kind of like the more experimental, screamy stuff, the Seishas and the U and I's and stuff where it would be like for like especially stuff like You and I and Torches to Rome, just stuff where like four or five different people had microphones and we're all kind of like screaming. Um, it really reminded me of Motown, and I started thinking about like the different forms of narration that you have and um what the different voices mean if there's like a main character like an ego and then there's like the community is commenting upon what the main character's saying. That's like some of them. Other ones are like sort of like a chorus of different voices like all talking on top of each other. And so I started thinking about like community, what DIY meant. And um and I started thinking about like writing songs from the point of view of like we, you know what I mean? Like the collective. And um that's sort of like where the idea of like a lot of different voices came in. And it was never like we're gonna have singing and screaming. It was more like, well, we're a hardcore band with all these voices. And then I kind of found my voices like more in line with sort of like the stuff that I grew up on, like the like new romantics and the new wave stuff and kind of like what people would come to later call goth and stuff like that. Like really like romantic singing, kind of like almost like ballads but fast. So that's kind of like how the vocal combination of Thursday sort of first started. And I think that like the main thing that I didn't like as much about bands that came in our wake, like the kind of bands that became like what it would like maybe you'd call like mainstream screamo.
Hmm.
At the time we called it mainstreamo. Um, it was like they just had this formula of like singing and screaming, you
Yeah.
know?
It was
And I was like,
predictable
but that's
almost.
yeah, and it was also just kind
Yeah.
of all like, yeah, you sing and you scream. That's what the music is. And to me, I was like, what? You know what I mean? It's like saying like, yeah, you distort the guitar. It's just like who cares? Like, yeah, sure, that's one way to do it, but that's not what the music is like about.
Hmm.
You know what I mean? It's like that's not what we're trying to do is like have one guy singing and one guy screaming. That's not even interesting. You know what I mean? Like I
Yeah.
had all these ideas about what we were actually doing. And what I think a lot of our fan base got from it was like they're singing and screaming, oh my God. So it's just sort of like sometimes your intent and what people like get from you are different things. And that's just the nature of I think everything of art and everything else is like you're trying to do one thing and what people like about you sometimes isn't even like what you're trying to do. But I also I think it's also why like we probably didn't break through as much is because like we weren't trying to do that. That was sort of a byproduct of what we were trying to do. And so it wasn't a formula that we wanted to abandon or hold on to. It just was sort of like, yeah, it's just a side effect to the medication. You know what I mean? It's like what we're
Yeah.
trying to do is over here, and sometimes we do this thing because of it that you like, and sometimes we don't. And I didn't feel strongly about like we're not going to scream anymore or like we have to keep screaming. You know what I mean? It
Yeah.
wasn't that wasn't the way I ever thought of it. And it's funny because I would read these articles that are like, we're not screaming anymore. And it's like, I never said that. I never said any of that. You know what I mean? Like that's a weird narrative that you're trying to put on us, but I guess somebody thinks it's interesting, so I guess go for it, you know. Uh,
Was there any songs that you put out that like now, especially in like your like full collapse war all the time, um, was there any like songs that you put out then that you didn't think would be as big as they are now? Like in your
oh
rotate.
shoot, I think I lost you. Did I lose you, Nicholas?
Can you hear me?
Hmm. Oh, sorry. You cut out for a while. I'm sorry.
Oh,
What was
you're
that
good. You're
question,
good.
Nicholas? Sorry.
Okay, going back for you. I got you. I'll just do. Okay, wait,
Shoot.
wait,
I'm
no, no,
losing you again. What is going on? Let me see if I can, let me see if it's my signal here. My well, it says I'm still on the Wi-Fi.
I hear you good if you hear me good.
Okay, you were just really like freezing on me, so I don't know what's happening. Okay. All right. Let's
Okay.
try it again.
No, no, you're good. You're good. 534. Okay. Was there any songs that you put out, especially in like full collapse war all the time, that you didn't expect to be as big as they are now, or like a part of like your set list rotation? Because I feel like a lot
Hmm.
of times people have like songs that they just kind of put on the album and then they're like, oh, well, this was the hit, and we expected this to be the hit.
That's a really good question. Probably this song brought to you by Falling Bomb off of War All the Time. I didn't expect that to be like such a big part of our set list. I wouldn't say it was like ever like a hit for us or anything, but
Hmm.
it's just like such a major dramatic moment in our set that I don't think I would have ever guessed that at the time. It took us a really long time to start playing that, so we weren't like playing it on War All the Time. All you know, sometimes we would skip it because it was we didn't always bring a piano on tour. You know what I mean? So it's like when we got a little more experimental, we started putting it in the set more. I mean, there was a point at which we were like traveling with like a real Mellotron and stuff like that. You know, we were just
Yeah.
out of control. Like we had too many trucks and stuff. Um, but yeah, I probably never would have guessed that that would become like such a staple. The rest of them were the kind of the ones that I thought they would be. You know, I remember kind of originally understanding a car crash was like third on the record, and like when we heard back the mixes we were all kind of like, should this maybe go first? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like this song's kind of like there's something about it, like I've never quite heard anything like it, like maybe this, you know, and all our friends are like, what's this? You know what I mean? Whereas I was like originally thinking Cross Out the Eyes would open the record, and like Cross Out the Eyes was still like a big part of our set and everything, but understanding kind of like just had some magic in it. But other than that, like I felt pretty confident about everything on Full Collapse being like really geared towards live. More all the time. It's the ones that I really thought would be great live were great live. Like for the Workforce Drowning was like our opener for like 10 years at least.
Yeah.
Um,
My
I
purse. Oh no, you go,
sorry.
you go. You go, you
I
go.
was just gonna say like maybe War All the Time, the title track itself. Like I that was supposed to be our second single. It never came out because the whole late record label like left. They let like the whole staff left the record label, so like nobody pushed that song. But you know, I don't think I ever realized it would become like our big closer, you know, live. Like to me, that was more of like an album track, you know what I mean? Like a
Yeah.
soft song. And
Just to
now
throw
it's
it in.
like my favorite one to play, you know, because it has this big triumphant feeling that we like never have in the rest of our set.
Was there any songs that, like you said, World Tenant was your favorite song to play? Is there any other songs that kind of uh that you just love performing? Like since the start in the 2000s to now, you're like, I still love it every single second of it.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not a person that like hates playing understanding or like, you know what I mean? Like I
Yeah.
don't I have friends that are like the, you know, I hate playing that song. I've played it so many times or whatever, and that's just not how I am about Thursday stuff. I'm very lucky that I still really love that song. For me, it's like I never get sick of playing Fast to the End, and it's from our last record, but even that last record, you know, it's like we wrote that in 2009, which is now, you know, 16 years ago or whatever. That one's just such a banger to play live. It's just so different. It's like it just makes me feel weightless every time we play it. I just love it. Um, that's like one that like I don't know if everybody realizes, but like when we play that, we're just so amped.
Yeah. My favorite, just to throw in there, my favorite song by you guys is Jet Black New Year, like by
Oh,
far.
nice.
That's like my absolutely favorite. And I really liked hearing that when I saw you guys at the Archer Music Hall. That was a really fantastic show. And when I
Nice.
heard that song, I was like, wow, like this is exactly what I thought it was gonna be.
Yeah, it's really funny. When we handed that song in, so we had two labels at that moment because that was the transition between Victory and Island Records. And so we were giving it to Victory as the kind of like goodbye piece. But Island was also listening because they had signed us for like millions of dollars. And they were kind of like, well, what are they going to do next? And I remember Island being like, you're just going to write more songs like this, are you? Like, this is crap. Like, it's so hard. Why is it metal? Like, what are you guys doing? And Victory was like, this is really what you're going to give us for your last song on Victory? This fucking thing sucks. So like everybody hated that song when we handed it in, and I was like, "Ah, I think they're tripping. This song rules. You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
it's
Like I don't know
fantastic.
what they're talking about, and like it's certainly a fan favorite for sure. So it feels good when you're like, I think this is good. I don't know
Yeah,
why everybody seems to hate it, but I think when you do stuff that sort of like breaks the rules of what you were doing before, it takes people a minute to adjust. You know what I
yeah,
mean? So I try to remember that like and let people have some time to hate stuff at first, people really hated the record Common Existence when it came out, like really hated like and it took people so long to get it that I was like, oh, people never like this. I guess they just don't like this record. You know what I mean? That is weird. It's just a dud. And like I really loved it when we wrote it. I was really proud of it. Like put a lot of myself into that record. And I was just like, I guess it's just not, people would always say your worst record clearly is Common Existence for like years and years and years. And then like last year I found out that if you go on Reddit or like any of our message boards or anything, everybody says it's like the like sneaky, like if you're a real fan, the best one is Common Existence, which to me
yeah.
is just like, okay. You know what I mean?
I'll
Like we
take
still
it.
don't play. We still don't play any of those songs because we were just like, man, people hate this record. I guess we're not gonna play any of it. You know what I mean? Um, so it's really funny that people have come around to it and we just still don't play it. It's just like, I don't know. We got so burnt on it.
Did you guys have a moment where you said in 2000 like one when you put out Full Collapse like 8 months later, you guys start getting like a lot of traction on it. Was there a moment like live or tour wise that you're like, okay, this is going to be our career. This is our moment.
Well, I don't think we really even thought of it that way, but I do remember so that like November, December of that year, we were out with Saves the Day, and the tour was like, geez, I'm like blanking now, but it was like Saves the Day, Hey Mercedes. Oh my God, who was the other band? There were, oh. Was it Hot Rod Circuit? I think it might have been Hot Rod Circuit. Sorry, we toured with so many of these
No,
bands
you're
like
good. You're
a,
good.
a lot that like sometimes I can't remember. I think it was Hot Rod Circuit. Anyway, um, we were the opener on the whole tour, one of four. We're the first ones on. And I remember like maybe 2 weeks into the tour, we were on first and we got this reception where it was like everybody going fucking crazy. You know what I mean? Just absolutely going crazy and singing along. And like I was just like, wow, like this show's gonna be off the hook if like we're getting this kind of response. We're just the first band, you know what I mean? And when we finished, there was like a one more song. And it went so long that says they were like, do you want to play another song? And we're like, no, we're the opener. Like, it's fine, keep the show going. But it was like the rest of the show wasn't that crazy. And that was the first time that I thought, wow, that's weird. Like something's happening. You know what I mean? Like something
Yeah.
different is happening because that was weird.
Was there any shows too that you were talking about the before we started about CBGBs that were memorable for you too? I definitely want to
Yeah.
touch into that, but I know like everyone has like their show that they're like, even if the crowd didn't receive it, like you just loved playing at that venue or that time.
Yeah, I mean, we played CB's a bunch. And I remember like we were by the time War All the Time came out, we were a big band. That War All the Time was a top 10 Billboard album. You know what I mean? It
Hmm.
was like us, Beyonce, like it was just like it's a big record. But we played a release show. Like we did like a big release show at the Roseland in New York, the Roseland Ballroom, which is no longer there, but was like it's like where I lived when I was a kid. Every big band that I saw was at the Roseland, Smashing Pumpkins, Nine Inch Nails, just like
Hmm.
Nirvana. The list goes on and on and on. But we played there for the release, but secretly the night before, the night the record actually came out, we played CBGB's, and that was like a wild show because I think we did it for like $5. It was like just like come, if you've been with us forever, like just come to this show, $5. So that's like that was a pretty wild memory. Yeah, we did play the Save CBGB's shows, which were really funny because they were $90,000 behind on rent. And so like us, Blondie against me, and like maybe like the Bouncing Souls, like we all played free benefit shows to raise the rent for CBGBs, and then Billy just took the money and ran. He didn't like save it. He let it close and just took the money, which is really funny. Um, Even at the time, I thought it was like, well, I guess that's what a punk would do. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like you gotta respect it in a way. But that show was really funny because like the mayor at the time was Bloomberg, and he came to the show and like made me come out to his limo so he could like thank me on behalf of the city um for saving a cultural landmark, CBGB's. And I was like, oh yeah, my dad actually worked for you. Like he was a computer programmer at Bloomberg, and he that stumped him so bad because I think in his mind he was like, I'm gonna go talk to the punks. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I was like, yeah, my dad's the kind of like a low level computer programmer for you. And he was just like couldn't get his head around. You know what I mean? He like totally froze, didn't know what to say, and I was like, all right, see ya. Um, but yeah, that was a great show. There's like a handful of shows that are just so magical. Like we headlined them. We didn't headline. We played the main stage at Reading Festival in London, and it was like 80,000 people watching us or something. It was on the BBC, and we just played really well. And like the stage is like 2 stories up, and everybody's like, don't jump off the stage, it's too far. But I like figured out that there was relay speakers between the stage and the barricade, so I like jumped down one floor and then jumped down another floor to the barricade. What I didn't know is that because it's so high, they figured nobody would ever jump, so the mic wasn't actually grounded, so I hit the barricade and got electrocuted.
Jesus.
And the worst part was everybody, the barricade was metal, so like everybody in the front row like also got like briefly electrocuted, and I like threw the mic back on stage. But like that was a pretty like literally electric show. I remember that
Yeah.
being really wild. The We played another show at the Roseland Ballroom. It was like a sold out show. I was really looking forward to it, and like I got off the train, I was like taking the train to the show, and I got off the train and I had like a bunch of missed calls from my mom, and she I called her back and she was like, "Oh, your Nana passed away. Like sorry to tell you before this big show." And I was like so devastated. She was my favorite. Like she's, reason I'm still a Mets fan.
Yeah.
Um and like I really didn't want to play that show, you know what I mean? I was really, really messed up. It was also like the last night of tour and like 2 days before Thanksgiving, and I was supposed to spend Thanksgiving with my Nana. So I was like really, really broken up about it. And then I went on stage and played anyway, and it was like a really special, like I really felt some, presence of my Nana. So it was yeah, that was a special one. I mean, there's so many, I've been
Yeah.
touring for 27 years, so I've been really lucky to have you know, a handful of shows every couple of years that are really special, then that kind of adds up. You know what I mean?
Do you find
Um,
it easier from when you started to now, just in terms of how you react with the crowd? And I like when you guys open, I love how you open with like the clapping, like, and at least you did for Archer. Like that's it was very like, okay, this is you're part of the show. Like we're gonna do this right away. Did it take you some time to kind of find where? you need it to go stage presence? Because people very much say you have a wild electric stage presence.
Well, it's definitely, changed since I was a kid. When I was a kid, I'd be jumping off the drum set and in the crowd and like, doing all that. And I've, since broken legs on stage and stuff like that and had like, so now what I really try to do is just like step into the energy that's there um I feel like we've come a long way. I'm a much better singer now than I used to be, so that helps too. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
It's just being confident that like the job that I'm supposed to do, I'll do well. And then the rest of it, which has been always the easy part for me, which is like connecting to people on like a deeper level because like music is like my spiritual practice, you know what I mean? So for me, like bringing music to people who love music the way that I love music is like that's the job I've always been good at is like communication. Um, so now, like, I try to be aware of the fact that like I'm older and I'm not the same person that I was 25 years ago. I don't have the same fears and anxieties. I have new, different, special fears and anxieties, and I have moments of triumph and humor. You know what I mean? I found a
Yeah.
much funnier side in life too, which I think really is an element that was missing from Thursday for a long time. I think there was like danger and sadness and all this, like, it was a very serious thing to see a Thursday show. And I think that was a beautiful period for us. And now I think there's a little bit more of a release and there's a catharsis and there's being able to laugh in the middle of things. And I think that's really brought the band like a much more three-dimensional feeling over the years. So I'm lucky that, with Thursday, it's like we're standing on the shoulders of giants. There's so many artists that have shaped me and shown me the way. And, when I started singing for Thursday, like the singer I most wanted to emulate was PJ Harvey. I really
Hmm.
wanted to sing the way that she sang with this sort of like expressiveness and wildness and like danger in a way that didn't feel like hardcore danger. It didn't feel like you should be scared of me. It should be like we're caught in this big machine and it's terrifying and how are we going to get out? It was like the feeling that I wanted to like bring as far as danger. So like I really wanted to do this PJ Harvey thing and recently I saw her and she was talking about like being like 50 or whatever and she was better than she's ever been and she's like, if you're taking care of your voice, this should be the when your voice sounds the best,
Hmm.
in your 50s. And I was like, whoa, all this time I thought like by the time I'm 30, I'm going to be washed up. You know what I mean? And now I'm seeing like an artist that I love and respect, and she's telling me that like I'm going to get better. I'm going to keep getting better. And I was like, really took that to heart. Is like, let's get better. You know what I mean? Let's just
Yeah.
keep getting better. Let's get more intense, like more beautiful. Let's like laugh about it. Let's cry about it. Basically, like I'm just trying to get better and stand on the shoulders of these artists that came before and trying to take what I can from it and use it and just stay connected to music because I just love it so darn much.
When you're writing, like you were saying too about how it's not just about the music. Like you have a lot of emotion into your music. It's very clearly that you show that and you feel that. Is there any like themes that you feel most passionate about when you write?
Yeah, it's funny that you say that because I think every song I try to find some new lens to talk about the world through, a new
Hmm.
subject, a new but I think like recently I was talking to there's a fan of ours that kind of grew up on our message board that now is like a National Book Award winning poet and we've become friends over the years. Like I read a book of hers called Carceral Capitalism that really like it really moved me and it's the book that I'm writing right now has a lot to do with things that I read about in her nonfiction book. And we had a discussion recently where she said, you're a transcendentalist, you know what I mean? And I'm not because I believe that like divinity is in every moment of the earth here. Here on earth, this is where divinity is. And you clearly want to transcend and get beyond the physical realm into like a place of spirit. And I've been thinking about that and I really think like in a way she's right, but I think that I almost approach it more like particle physics where it's both. It's like it's these two things until you have to check which one you're in the moment, which is like transcending past the physical realm, but also like really appreciating every moment of the world and its beauty while we're here, even through the good and the bad. And I think that's like sort of like if I had to talk about like an overarching theme that made it through all of that. Like that's like the quality that I look for in music is like something that transcends the bleakness of this world, but also celebrates the fact that it is still this beautiful place if you can find the beauty in it.
Hmm.
So that's kind of like what I think about a lot when I'm writing is like, does this subject bring me closer to that transcendent place? And I think there's so much great music that does, like for me, we were really lucky. We got to tour with Carrie from Deaf Heaven playing guitar for us for a while. And I think Deaf Heaven is a band that touches that transcendent beauty place, especially with the record Sunbather. And I think their new one has a lot of it too. Um, yeah.
It's funny you say Carrie. I'm actually recording with him. Sneak peek for anyone watching
All
this part.
right.
Yeah, I'm recording with Carrie next week. I'm
He's the
super.
best. I
He's
love
such a
Carrie
nice
so
guy.
much. Yeah,
But yeah, that's a little teaser. If you're still listening, that's your next episode after Geoff. You got Carrie from Death Haven.
you're
So
gonna
go.
love it.
So obviously one of the big things too, and you're promoting it a lot in general because it got such a great reception was your book, Someone Who Isn't Me. Could you kind of just touch on what the basis of it's about and what you want readers to grasp about? Because I'd love just that
Yeah,
not everyone's always reading, but sometimes you get a little spark when
sure.
you hear about. Can you kind of give
Well,
us?
the book itself is this strange mix of fiction and sort of nonfiction that basically people call autofiction a lot, but it's about a character named Jeff in a band Thursday, gets addicted to heroin, is trying to find his way in the world and get past the addiction, loses a lot, loses his band, loses his girl, finds out about this experimental drug called Ibogaine, which is a real drug, and it's something that I really went to Mexico and did, and causes really intense hallucinations for about 48 hours, and then it's supposed to be this cure for heroin addiction. So I used that like experience in my life to write this novel that's kind of like a retelling of Dante's Inferno. So the hallucinations become the Inferno, and it's like this sort of journey through hell or whatever. But it's fun and it's supposed to be funny. So if you hear Journey Through Hell and you think, oh, I'm not gonna read that, that sounds bleak, it's like, well, come on, have a little fun. Come with me through hell. I'll show you some funny stuff. But yeah, it's been a runaway hit in a way that I didn't expect to the point where it's even sold more than the last Thursday record. And the reception from like the literary world has been really beautiful, in a way that like I didn't expect to be welcomed into, a serious literary community. I kind of thought they'd always treat me like this guy in the band that's trying to prove something by writing a book or something.
Absolutely, yeah.
Uh, but I took it really seriously. It took me 5 years to write it. I took a bunch of classes. I had a bunch of editors. Like it was a labor of love. I wasn't trying to like show off or prove something. I just really love writing and I felt like I had a story that I wanted to tell. I did this drug that nobody's ever really heard of and, had such a wild experience on it that I thought like, I want to bring some people into my head. And that's why it's not a memoir. I didn't want it to be me telling people the experience of taking this drug. I wanted them to be able to lose themselves in the story. Uh, that's the kind of writing that I like. You know what I mean? I'm a fiction reader. I like fiction. So even if it's like basically all real, I wanted to write a novel that was about characters and it was about character arcs and relationships and you know,
Yeah, it sounds fantastic, and I also love when books kind of the auto fiction realm. That's definitely a genre that I like to touch into.
yeah, and there's so much ground in that realm. You know what I mean? You have
Hmm.
things like Sheila Heti, which is like just funny. And you have stuff like Karloff Nosgard that's like serious. You know what I mean? There's a lot of space to do a lot of different things in there. So um yeah.
When did you know that you wanted to write a book? You said that you liked writing. You had a story to tell. Was it kind of just like a moment, or were you reading something that kind of sparked that?
Since I was a kid, before Thursday was like my life, my life's work, whatever you want to call it. I thought I would be a writer. I thought, well, maybe I'll be a school teacher and then I'll write some books or do something because like I know I have something that I know I in my heart I want to be an artist and that like I have the I have the temperament that I'm gonna need to make something, even if nobody ever reads it or cares about it. Like, I'm gonna do it. And so I always thought I'd be a writer. And then when Thursday came along and became successful, I said to myself, well, I guess this is how I'm a writer. It's lyrics. It's not what I thought it was going to be, but it's cool. It's my path. I'm lucky I get a path. But I always thought like it'd be really cool to write a book someday. And then when I got sober, when I went to Mexico and took this wild psychedelic drug that like really changed my life and changed the way I looked at the human mind and the way I look like identity. And when I say identity, I don't mean like identity politics or anything like that. I mean like what it is to be an I. You know what I mean? Who
Yeah.
are we? Like, is who we are mutable? Like, are we fixed in place? Are we changing? Is there a center in the I at all, or are we just like a collection of what people say to us and who we're around? You know what I mean? Like, those are all questions that I suddenly felt like I had this new perspective on, that like maybe no one is one eye. There's a lot of eyes in there that are all competing for different spots. And I was like, all right, this is something that it's not even going to be a record. You know what I mean? Like I know I can't get what I need to say out in a record. Like this is I started to take shape, you know what I mean? I started to see this thing, and even my agent, like my literary agent, when she got the first chapter in the pitch, she was like, I don't know if you want to do this as your first book. Like, this is pretty ambitious. Like, what you're doing here is like really advanced novelists have tried to do stuff like this, and it's really hard. And she gave me a few, she gave me a bunch of books actually that she was like, I think this one does this kind of thing well. I think this does psychology well. I think this one's funny. I think this one does the kind of time period that you're looking for well. So she gave me like a ton of stuff to read. And one of the things she gave me to read was this book called Juliet the Maniac by Juliet Escoria. And that's about a girl in high school realizing that she's schizophrenic. And like, so her mind starts to kind of break in front of her, but she doesn't know what it is. You know what I mean? Like this, she
Hmm.
just is walking down the her high school hallway, and there's like strings coming out of lockers that are shadows that are like pulling her mind apart. You know what I mean? And she's like, what is this? Is everybody seeing this? You know what I mean? And so like I was like, okay, cool. This is sort of what I'm trying to do too, where it's like it almost seems like a genre book, but it's not fantasy, it's real. It's like lived experience that's real that just feels totally unreal. Um, and I was lucky that she read my book before it came out and she gave me a blurb for the book because she was like, I can't believe you figured out how to do this. Like, I wrote a book like this and like you did it in a way that's really cool and really different. Like, I just can't believe you figured this out. And that was like the moment where I felt like it's all been worth, like all the work has been worth it. This writer that I love that like influenced me so much said like, how'd you do this? You know what I mean? I
Yeah.
was like, yes.
Your hell yeah moment.
Yeah.
So again, I don't know if you want to touch in on this at all because I know working in that field sometimes it's a little touchy, but what made you go to get that drug? Like, was there kind of a
Um,
point in time? Is that okay or no?
yeah, no, that's fine.
Okay.
Honestly, all my friends have been trying to get me to get sober for years.
Hmm.
Like my girl had kicked me out. Like it was really like it's just so bleak, and everything that I tried just didn't work. You know, um, I tried so many different ways to get through it, and I just couldn't get it. And I was really starting to feel like it was hopeless. Like I started just kind of like accepting, like, yeah, it's gonna kill you, and like, you know, I wasn't trying to die or anything, but I was sort of at the point where I was like, yeah. Like
Yeah.
maybe it should kill me. You know what I mean? Like I just don't think I can do this anymore. This is too hard. And like I just keep letting everybody down. You know what I mean? People keep on believing that I'm gonna kick and that I'm gonna get somewhere, and I just keep like keep losing it, I keep picking up again, I keep using again, and I just feel like it's totally out of my control. And Don from Ink and Dagger actually, came to me and was like, yo, do this thing. Like it works, like word, like seriously, like you got nothing to lose. Like you're definitely gonna die, bro. Like you got to do something, you know?
Yeah.
And it's just one of those things, you know what I mean? Like he's not like afraid of drugs. Like, you know what I mean? Like this is a friend who's like, yeah, bro, like we all do drugs. Like
Yeah.
you're gonna die. Like that's the difference. Like you're beyond. You're in the place where it's over. And I think him just kind of like going and doing all the research and telling me like I'll help you, I'll give you money if you need money. Like, we need to get you there. I already called this guy. He's saving a spot for you in his program. Like, I think it just sort of hit me like maybe this is my last chance. You know what I
Yeah,
mean? Like, here's
absolutely.
somebody that's still trying to help me, even though like a lot of people are kind of like,
They already tried, they're pushing you off at that point.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, like you're done, bro. Like, I don't even want to talk to you anymore. And here's somebody who's got like something that's drastic. You know what I mean? He's saying this is famously unpleasant. You're not gonna enjoy it. Like, this is gonna kick your ass. And me just being like, well, what else am I
Why
gonna do?
not? Yeah.
Yeah, like I'm about to die. I might as well. I literally thought when I went there, because I heard that also this substance kills people too. It like gives them heart attacks and stuff. It's like not uncommon. And I thought like I think the singer Rich Kids on LSD, there's like a few pretty famous people who have died from it. And I just kind of thought like, you know what? Like I at least want to go down like trying. You know what
Hmm.
I mean? Like if I die doing this, my friends will know like I tr really tried. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? And that's where I was at. I was like, I want them to know that I love them and I did my best. And so that was kind of how I went into it, and then it worked, and it was like kind of a miracle. And now I try to like you know, I try to sponsor people and help them get sober and be
That's
part of a sober community or whatever you want to
yeah, yeah,
call it.
yeah. That's fantastic. Sorry if that was touchy. I was just curious from a healthcare perspective.
Oh
Heard
yeah, that makes sense.
I've never heard that before. So that I thought that's a cool thing that
Yeah,
there's
I think,
things like
there
that
is some
available.
mainstream push for it to be brought into the US now. The biggest hurdle is that it lengthens the QT time. So
Damn
people
QT
do,
interval. Damn
yeah, damn interval.
it.
Yeah. So that's like the real danger in it. They screen you first.
Hmm.
They had me run on the treadmill with like heart monitors and stuff. They did my blood work, and they
Yeah,
really tried to
yeah.
be like, is this guy vulnerable? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Is this gonna kill this guy? He seems pretty healthy actually, despite all the shit that he keeps putting in his body. And like out of the six people who went down there, they do like six people at a time in the program. Only four of them were allowed to take it. So two of them did get screened out because they were just like, it's not for you.
Yeah.
So yeah, it is an interesting thing. Like I sometimes think like I could probably write a nonfiction book on this drug too, just because it's so like unknown.
I totally think you
But
could. I
yeah,
totally.
I just don't know if I'm that interested in nonfiction. Like I think people do that better than me. Whereas like a certain kind of like evocative fiction is like that's what I'm good at. You know what I mean? That's
Yeah.
where I got to put my energy or whatever.
You said that you're working on a new book then?
Yeah, it's totally character driven though. No Jeff in it. No Jeff character.
No,
It's
Jeff.
it's about revenge.
Revenge. Gotcha. And I'll probably leave it like that. I'm sure you probably haven't put out too much about what it's going to be like at all.
That's about how much I put out. The only other thing I put like a story out that was like talking about sex and books that write about sex because like there's a part of the book that's
Yes.
about like parties and sex and stuff like that. And I was like trying to get some recommendations and just sort of thinking out loud about it. And it's like so by far the most popular posts I've ever made by like I got like almost 5,000 responses to those stories. Um, and it made me think like, wow, people are really like thinking about this stuff. You know what I mean? They're thinking
Hmm.
about sex a lot and not knowing what to think about it. And it's really interesting that that touched a nerve from somebody who's not like a famously sexy person, kind of like one of the last concerns in most of my work. So yeah, it was very interesting. It made me think I should start a Substack though and write about some of this stuff.
I love Substacks. I feel like that's a great way too for authors to just even put out short things and
Yeah.
get that
Yeah.
kind of response.
Yeah, kind of work out ideas before they end up in the fiction or the nonfiction or whatever. Yeah, I'm starting to come around to the idea that maybe I should explore these things a little more.
Yeah. You also do solo act too, which I think is
Yeah.
awesome. You just got back from tour with Anthony Green and Kurt Travis.
That's right, my
What
boys.
when you are doing that kind of music, it's pretty much singer-songwriter. My eyes. Is it a different kind of feeling when you're playing that kind of show compared to where your typical Thursday and heavy music?
Yeah, it's a lot scarier. There's a transparency when you're playing soft music, like meaning when Thursday plays, the whole world gets blocked out and it's just like you have Thursday in your head. That's
Hmm.
it. When I play really softly by myself, it's like I can hear every conversation in the venue while I'm playing. And I have to kind of like tune it out as much as possible, but it gets in. Like I'll sometimes hear conversations and I'll be thinking about what they're talking about while I'm singing. It's like a very strange, it's very like see-through. The whole thing is very like it's just yeah, there's cracks and things get through and I think it's if you're playing like especially like places like Reno, Las Vegas, places where it's like a bar and like everybody's having fun at the bar, it can be like disorienting because you know that people aren't really listening. Like
Mm,
nobody's listening. It's almost like you're playing by yourself, to yourself, in front of 500 people. You know what I mean? It's really weird. And I've gotten really good at kind of like knocking people out of their conversations and getting their attention. And it's like, honestly, most of the time it's about like getting as quiet as you can get until people feel like they have to stop talking so that they can listen. It's a really strange, like working your way down instead of trying to get louder to compete. You have to kind of like pull back and make them feel uncomfortable that they're talking.
hmm.
Um, and I've gotten good at that where I don't break down on stage. I used to like kind of have like a nervous breakdown on stage. And I've gotten really good at it, but it's still like it's a really interesting, challenging, different thing. And you say singer-songwriter, I play a lot of Thursday songs.
Yeah.
Um, but it's like I try to reveal something that you wouldn't have seen that was always there in the song, but that like at a certain volume that gets blended out. You know what I mean? It's just like it's smashed out by like the energy of the song. And so sometimes when you pull all that stuff out, all of a sudden you hear like, oh, it's kind of like a country song, or like, oh, whoa, it sounds like The Cure if you take all the heaviness out of it. There's a lot of different stuff. Like a lot of our songs actually sound like Cat Power when you make them soft. So,
Interesting.
which is funny because like she's a huge influence on me, but I thought like nobody will ever get that in Thursday. You know what I mean? I'm screaming up there, and now it's like people can sort of hear like, oh yeah, some of these songs are kind of Cat Power-esque. There's also like that like Motown and doo-woppy and 60s girl group stuff that I was talking about being a big influence. That is like way more apparent when I play those songs quiet. So yeah, I really love doing it. I've been working on some material like that. Maybe I'll put out a record or an EP or something at some point of like more of that kind of stuff. But that I almost feel like is just I do it so that I can go out and meet people. Like I sell my own
Yeah.
merch for my tour. You know what I mean? It's like for me, like the solo stuff is just like it's just like a different like I get to go out and be like social again. Because with Thursday, I'm just dead. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like I get off stage and I'm not saying hi to anybody. I'm like trying to rest my voice and going and lying down.
Yeah.
So, yeah. I mean, I think like all these things, like I'm starting to see how they kind of work together. You know what I mean? Like even putting out the book, I feel like people read Thursday lyrics differently now. They kind of like get Thursday on a different level. They're like, oh, he's sort of like always been a writer. Now I see it. You know what I mean? Now that he's
Hmm.
put out a book, I kind of see that he's always been more of a writer than a singer. And now I'm like going and reading the lyrics and like some of these are really interesting stories and things. So it's like I see how it all kind of works together. Whereas I used to think those things were fighting each other. It's like, oh no, like United Nations is so sarcastic and so like political and it's like actually very nihilistic and bleak. Whereas like Thursday is like sadder and full of more hope. Like, oh no, how does that work? And it's like, actually, that's
It does.
perfect. You
Yeah,
know what I
it
mean?
does.
Like we all have a lot of different sides to us. Like you put
Yeah.
all those things together and suddenly people make sense, what they care about. So yeah, so I've just started looking at it a little differently than I used to.
Gotcha. For the you being as a doing your solo act too, like you've also featured on a number of songs. One song that stuck out to me is my Eden. I love Common Sage. It's
Oh yeah.
one of my favorite bands, and me and Julian, we talk a good bit. He's a great guy. How
I
did you
love
get
that song.
how'd you get approached then for that? I mean, obviously, I know you were saying about being in Brooklyn. They're from Brooklyn, pretty close.
Right, right. Well, I've known Chris, who was in the band for a while. He's in that band Stay Inside. I've known Chris for a while. But also the guy who manages them, I've known since I was a kid. So he
Dubin?
kind of like, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, everybody knows Dubin. So he kind of brought it up, and I was like, maybe, but he sent it to Steve, and Steve was like, yo, this is so good.
Hmm. Yeah.
And I was like, I don't know, man. I'm tired. I don't want to do anything. And he sent me the song, and I was like, okay, when are we doing it? Because this is so good. You know what I mean? I was like, this
Yeah.
is actually so good. Um, I actually just did another one that by the time this comes out, it'll probably be out. It comes out tomorrow as of this
Oh,
taping.
lovely.
This song from a band called A Lot Like Birds. Um, but like I have a pretty like sizable contribution, and I think it really. So they have like two singers,
Oh,
and I'm
okay.
like the third singer on the track, but
That's
like
cool.
it kind of like by the time I come in, like I sort of become the lead, and then I drop out of being the lead for a little while, and then I'm the lead again. So it's like the whole song kind of turned upside down. And I'm not saying that like that's because I'm so good. Like they wrote the song and like
Yeah,
gave
yeah,
it to
yeah.
me. But like
I love
it's a really
multiple
cool,
singers. Yeah, that's
yeah, it's a
awesome.
really cool twist in the song. I'm really glad I got to do it. I think it's like something that I would normally never do. It's like a very different kind of style in some ways from what I do. So that's exciting. I like when I get to change like there's a record that I've been working on, a song for Dave from Botch and Minus the Bear. He has like a record that
Hmm.
he's working on that I did a track on that I really hope comes out because it's so cool and it's like kind of funky. It's like very different from me. It's like very post-punky, you know?
Yeah,
Um, so like I have fun getting to do that stuff.
gotcha. And then I'll kind of just leave you off with like the final topic. Obviously you're very close with the My Chemical Romance boys, Tucker being in the drummer boy in the whole scene too for them.
Yeah,
Um,
being a Black Parade member, so to speak.
yeah, I thought that was awesome. And I went to that show at MetLife. You guys killed
Oh
it, and
yeah.
that was
Oh, thanks.
fantastic in general. How did you were the producer of I Brought You My Bullets, You Brought Me Your Love. How did that kind of come about? Like them, did you approach them? Did you kind of just hear them? These are also New Jersey boys, so I figured.
So when we were on Eyeball at the time, there was like a house. There was like the Eyeball Records house, and a bunch of us lived there with Alex. Alex like opened it up to all like the artists and stuff, and he would have like lots of parties too. You know, I mean, that was part of how he got everybody together to like make stuff happen, because he would just constantly have parties where people would get together and talk. And Mikey was somebody that was like at all the parties, and I loved Mikey. You know what I mean? Mikey's such a sweetheart. Um, he's somebody who you see him and you think, oh, there's somebody that's shy, and then you get to know him and you're like, he's like actually the biggest social butterfly I've ever met in my life. And he was like, no, my brother is shy. Like Gerard is shy. Like he's probably home right now, like in his underwear, writing comics, like eating cereal. You know what I mean? Like he was like, that was the way he first described Gerard to me. And I was like, honestly, that sounds sick. Like he sounds like my kind of guy. Like, you know what I mean? And he's like, yeah, I'll bring him to the next party. And he came to the next party. And like immediately, I was like, I love this guy. Like, I love Gerard. Oh my God, he's so great. I just love him. Like, I just want to give him a big hug. He's so smart and he's got like such great taste. You know what I mean? All the art that he's talking about, the movies and the music and stuff, it's like all stuff you don't expect. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Whatever everybody else at the party's talking about, Gerard was like on a totally different trip and it was so good. He like didn't care what was cool. Like everything that he liked was like good and it had a sensibility to it. I was like, oh, you know what I mean? Like this is the only guy I know that's talking about like placebo at the party. You know what I mean? Like,
Hmm.
um, so I was just kind of like immediately enamored with him, and he was like, "Yeah, me and my brother are actually starting a band," and I was kind of like, "Yeah, you and everybody else." You know what I mean? Like,
Me too.
yeah, I was like, "Great," and he was like, "Yeah, it's called My Chemical Romance," and I remember stopping and being like, "Okay, but that's a really good name." You know what I mean? Like that's actually like a really cool name, like My Chemical Romance. Like that's really cool. And he's like, "Yeah, Irving wants you to know whatever." It's like, okay. Um, and then he did this insane thing, which is there was a broken guitar there with two strings. And he's like, Mikey, let's play him a song. And he like pulled the guitar down and it was like two strings. And like what he played me, I was like, that's not music. You know what I mean? I was like,
Yeah.
whatever you're trying to show me, like that's about the craziest thing I've ever heard in my life is like you trying to play me on a two-string guitar that's not in tune and be like, this is my band. Like I was like, wow, these kids are not for real, but I
Yeah.
really like them. You know what I mean? I was like, this is not. And then Alex, like after the next tour, he was like, no, come see them. They're like they use the same practice spaces. You guys just come see them. And they were a four-piece at the time. And I was like, all right, I'll come see them. And I like was like, dude, that sucks. I was like, they sound like NoFX. Like I'm not into it. It sounds like the Ramones and NoFX together. Like I just don't like it. It sucks. He was like, yeah, okay, like they're not where they need to be yet, but like they're gonna be good. And I'd be like, your drummer sucks. Like melodies are repetitive. Like, you know what I mean? I had this whole list of things. He was like, that's why you should work with him. Like, you could make him better. I was like, No, like not my kind of thing at all, you know?
Absolutely not.
And then right before I left for tour, I remember like Mikey and Alex running up to the van and being like, yo, 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 we recorded a song. And I was like, cool. And he's like, just think about it. And I saw like the name. Oh, I had given them an Ink and Dagger CD. I'd given them a few CDs and stuff that I was like, listen to something like cool. You know what I mean? I was like, whatever you guys are doing now, not cool. Do something cool. And I gave them like those records and whatever. And then I start driving and I put on the CD. It's one song and it's Vampires Will Never Hurt You. And I was like, is this actually good? Like, I think this is good. And then I played it like a few more times. And like people in the van are like, what is this? This is good. I was like, it is good, right? And they were like, yeah. And I played it like 100 more times till they're like, all right, you should shut it off. But suddenly I was like, no, this band is going to be amazing. So I started working with them on their record. Like I called them back and was like, yeah, I'll do the record with you guys. And then as soon as we started working on it, I was like, you need another guitar player and one who can sing. And I was like, and I got just the guy for you. You know, that's how I got Frank. I was like, Frank, you gotta be in this band.
Yeah.
I know you got your own band, but you gotta leave that band and be in this band. This is gonna be the band that gets out of here. Um, and then by the time we finished the record, I was like, I literally had like a vision of them playing that stadium, that show that you were at. Like I had a vision of it. Like while we were making the last song on the record, or not the last song, but the early sunsets. It was the
Yeah.
last song we recorded. So I still think of it as last song, even though it's not really the last song. I just knew. I knew. They just had something that like it wasn't there in the songs yet, but it was there in the room. That's all I
Hmm.
can say is that like
They
Gerard
wanted
would
it.
start singing
Yeah.
and I would hear where he could go because every take, literally, every time we'd hit play, he'd sing something cooler than the last thing that he sang. It was like I could hear him getting better every single take. And it was just like one of those feelings of like, man, he's already getting really good.
Yeah.
And this is like the first album that kind of sucked when we started. You know what I mean? Like
Hmm.
he's gone from being like not nothing, had nothing going on to like he's really good now. And like it was like almost one of those things you didn't want to stop recording because it just kept getting better and better and better and better and better. You know what I mean? It's like, whoa, you know? And it makes sense that like the very next song they would write would be like Helena. You know what I mean? It's
Hmm.
like that's a classic song. Like they were right on the edge
Absolutely.
of being a classic band.
What was it
So
like being asked then? Final question. What was it like being asked to play at that show? I mean, obviously, to them, I would say emotionally, probably one of their biggest shows that, especially now coming back playing shows, one of their biggest shows. How was it like being asked? Kind of like a full circle moment for you then.
can I tell you the truth? The truth is that we were actually trying to break up like a few years ago.
Hmm.
And they were like, you can't break up because we're coming back and we're going to play like a stadium and you need to open for us. Like literally, like we were like done.
Was this like
And
3 or 4 years ago or like eight?
this is like right before COVID
Okay.
because they were already planning it then. They
Hmm.
already had like the tour in the works, but it just kept getting pushed back because of COVID. So they literally were like, you can't break up. Like you can't. You know what I mean? Like they made it like literally, they were like, you can't. And so like we didn't. You know what I mean? That's how much it meant to us. Is we were like, if our friends really want us to be a part of this like thing, and I was like, I think stadiums is a little crazy, but okay, I don't know if I believe that. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? But they knew. And yeah, it was like I'm not gonna lie, like when they started playing, I cried.
Yeah. It was a
You know what I
beautiful
mean?
moment. It really
Yeah.
was. Like,
Yeah.
and I also thought it was cool how they had you guys open, which I thought was awesome because that was the only show with two bands as the opener.
Yeah, they
So
like
it,
made an extra category just for us.
yeah, it was awesome. It was a respect thing for sure. And well,
And
thank you.
we killed it that night. We sold so much more than we thought we were going to sell of merch. And like,
Mhm.
not that that like matters, but to know that you've been embraced by the crowd in a way that where it's like, oh, they sold more than Death Cab for Cutie or something. You know what I mean? It's like, which is like, of course, we're like the band that is more obvious to the crowd. You know, Death Cab is
Yeah.
like one of the true greats and one of my favorite bands. Like while we were making Full Collapse, I was driving around listening to We Have the Facts voting or voting us like
Yeah.
every other day. Um, but it was very like, wow, like you know what I mean? Like we did belong here and we actually kind of killed it. You know what I mean? Like that was a nice
Absolutely.
feeling. So yeah.
Thank you so much, Jeff, for joining. I really appreciate you coming on the podcast.
Oh, it was such a pleasure. Thanks for asking me, and I can't wait to see who else you get on soon.
Absolutely. Well, guys, down below in the some links there will be for Jeff's book with Rose City, and we will promote whatever you guys got. Thanks, guys. Till next time.